It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming on YouTube with audio and everything at youtube.com/@theteam980. That's right, early streamers who get in right when we go live at 4 o'clock. You don't have to comment today that there's no audio because I did it. I remembered to plug everything in. By the way, something that has not been previously published because Anthony and I have been running around like chickens with our heads cut off all day. But Anthony, we should put this on Twitter too. One-on-one with drum roll over Jahan Dotson coming up later in the show at 6:30. So you probably want to try to stay tuned as much as you can today. If not, come back and see us at 6:30, one-on-one with Commanders wideout Jahan Dotson. We start, though, Anthony. How about the Commanders pulling a fast one on us last night? They moved practice. It was supposed to be a 1:15 practice, I think, today, which means I would not get to go. And then they sent an email last night, and they're like, hey, practice at 11:30. And I was like, sweet, I will be there. So got to go to what was the final training camp practice today. And it was pretty light overall. A lot more of a strategy period. A lot of carded periods, which means they're working on, they're not running their stuff. They put up a play on a card and like a big oversized index card for those that have never seen it before. And the play is either one of Arizona's or one of Cincinnati's. And I tend to think it was Cincinnati's. And they were actually doing a little bit of game planning because of the guys that were out there. Like, you're not going to have your third stringers practicing against Arizona's stuff. And if you're also practicing against Arizona's stuff, then you're not having Jacoby Brissett take reps with the first team. Sam Howell will be taking all the reps with the first team because he's your QB1. And for the second straight day, Anthony, Jacoby Brissett was practicing with the first team. Now, I think it's important to remember, one, most importantly, this is not controversial in terms of starting quarterback. Sam Howell is QB1. The competition is over. Number two, it is important to remember that this team has played 3 quarterbacks every year since Kirk Cousins left, I believe is the stat. I was there for a lot of them, and I'm definitely a lot of quarterbacks that I covered in the post-Kirk Cousins era. From your Smith's Alex to your Johnson's Josh. To your everybody else. Case Keenum, on down the list. Guys that, who is it? Not Blaine Gabbert. Garrett Gilbert. Remember when he started a game? Yeah. So being prepared just in case is smart. Eric Bieniemy comes from Kansas City. It's like, oh, do you think they ever give the backup reps there? Oh, if they did, it sure paid off in the playoffs last year when Patrick Mahomes had to miss a series and Chad Henne came in and led them on a 90-something yard touchdown drive. So it's good to get these reps. But I think it raises a really interesting question because, Anthony, it sure looks like Jacoby Brissett's going to start this weekend not with the 2s to make so that Jake Fromm and the 3s don't have to play the whole game, but that he's going to start with the first offensive line minus Charles Leno, and who they're managing injury-wise, and the starting wide receivers, including Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel. Obviously, no Terry McLaurin because he's currently out, already injured. Didn't see that one coming, and not 100% guaranteed that that's going to happen. But based off practice today, that seems like my best guess.
That's so fascinating, Craig. Just because that leads me to question whether or not that takes away from Ron's comments yesterday on Sam Howell. Like, does it take away from the confidence level that Ron, basically went out and basically said, Sam's our guy, I no longer have a question mark about our quarterback position. Let's rest him and let Jacoby go play with the one. I think it's a little weird because, again, he's still young. He still needs the reps.
Yeah.
Darren Orlovsky on ESPN this morning talking about, Sam Howell needs to correct this. The first 2 preseason games, he got blitz, off the side, and he didn't see it coming. He didn't know how to react to it. So he's still young. He still needs the reps. Why not throw him out there if this is the guy that's going to lead us and our ones are going to be out there?
So I feel like you just made 2 different points that you connected that I don't think connect. And making sure we disconnect them is important. Because I do think there is a real argument to be made for playing Sam for the exact reason. I realize I'm the same guy who said I wouldn't have played him last week. But it's like these are the 2 sides of the coin, and it's a very thin line, right? 2 sides of the argument that I don't think either side is irrational. I would probably still lean on not playing him. But the argument for playing him is exactly what you just said. There is a weak point in his game. You probably will face some sort of pressure in a game that's different than when it's coming in a blitz period in practice. And so let's get him out there. And by the way, in a blitz period in practice, there aren't real consequences because you're not going to get hit. They just blow the whistle dead. It's different. And so let's see what happens. There's a preparation part. But I don't think that at all connects to Rivera's comments yesterday and not have any questions at Sam. This is in case of injury. Or, as I learned today when we take command, because Logan used this phrase and Del Rio used this phrase in the press conference, in case of a busted chin strap, which is basically the way that apparently football people inside football buildings talk about contingency plans and substitution patterns. Well, in case that guy's chin strap doesn't buckle and we got to get a quick sub on, we got to be prepared for that situation. It's a nice way of being like, in case our guy goes down. So in case of a busted chin strap, or if Sam, I'll just say it, like if Sam were to get hurt, short-term or long-term, obviously you very much hope that's not going to happen, but you hoped it wouldn't happen with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Taylor Heineke was your starter a quarter into the season. So if Taylor had gotten more reps in the spring and in the fall, or in the summer, I should say, he would have probably been better prepared for the fall. And so you can be as confident as you want in Sam and have no worries about him being benched in the future because of performance and still want to go out there and have the backup prepared and having thrown to the ones before. And if you want to fight me on this, I would point you to Chad Henne and Patrick Mahomes, because if you think that they were preparing Chad Henne in case Patrick Mahomes had to get benched for performance, then I'd like you to say that again out loud and realize how wrong you are. So I think both things can be true. I think there is an argument to be made for playing Sam for Sam's purposes, but I don't think doing what it looks like they're about to do with Jacoby Brissett is happening because of any lack of faith in Sam. It's happening because football is a game where you can't turn injuries off like you can in Madden.
My only question and rebuttal would be, because I agree with you, Craig. I'm going to affirm you right here. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
But why not have this same energy last weekend with the defense? We know Chase didn't play. We know John Allen was a little banged up. Everybody else could have played, though, Craig. Again, I wasn't impressed with the defense's performance in the first preseason game. They marched right down the field. Granted, we got a goal line stand, but it's still something about the defense that's left for me to be desired about their performance.
Because quarterback is different than defense.
Okay. All right.
That's the quick version of the rebuttal.
Thank you.
The more extended version is it depends on the types of mistakes that you're making and how dependent you are on other people to fix them. The mistakes that Cody Barton is making, Cody Barton needs to fix and have nothing to do with making Cody's life better because Daron Payne is playing in front of him. Deron Payne and John Allen and Montez Sweat don't need more preseason reps. They're good. They're in year 4 of the system. They know it like the back of their hands. They have dominated practices, and one bad series against Cleveland that ultimately ends in a goal line stand is not enough for me to want to risk those guys in the regular season. But it's why Emmanuel Forbes played. Because, is Forbes' job easier if Cam Curl is out there? Yeah, of course. Okay, well, we're really not worried about Curl. We're worried about Emmanuel, so, let's make it harder on him. Let's see if he can handle it. Oh, he and Quan messed something up. Now we got to talk to both of them about it. It doesn't, the dots don't connect in the same way. Quarterback is the most reliant position on other people. You need to protect him, so the offensive line has to play. And you'd really like for him to succeed, so you'd like your best skill position players out there. I think you can do without the skill positions, which is why if you want to play the line this week with Jacoby and play Dotson and Samuel a little bit so that you get the reps with Jacoby, fine. But I would not play Dotson very much at all. I would not play Samuel very much at all. You've already lost one there. Do not risk it. If you want to play Robinson a little bit, you want to play Gibson a little bit, fine. And also, there's this huge gap. So if you don't want to have to wait so long for football again, you don't want them to get rusty. I'm fine with all of it. I'd be fine with pretty much anything, if I'm being honest. I just think it's interesting that it's okay, now's the time that we're going to get Jacoby the reps with the ones. But I do think there's some intelligence to it. No one's going to question. This isn't going to create a quarterback controversy because you've already named Sam the starter. So you can do it now. Sam's the guy. It's unquestioned. And it's just hey, we're preparing just in case because it's football and just in case happens all the time. But I do think it's a valid question because there is a lot of gray area here. Who do you want to see play this weekend against Cincinnati? So let's take some calls on it. 301-230-0980, the H-Law listener line. With Brissett looking to potentially play with the ones against the Bengals, and who knows what we'll see on defense. Who do you want to see? And I'll take guys that you definitely want to see or guys that you definitely don't. 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, streaming live on YouTube and always live on the free Odyssey app. on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Taking your calls for the next half hour or so, 301-230-0980, before we talk to Jesse Dougherty at 5 o'clock about the major Nationals breaking news of the day, which is that Stephen Strasburg is going to retire, the 35-year-old former World Series champion. Of course, finally succumbing to those elbow issues. At least that's what it appears. But it's a press conference scheduled for September 9th. We'll get the latest from Jesse. 5 o'clock, today's top story, and not my beat. We'll talk to you about Strauss as well in the 5 o'clock hour. Is he the most important National ever? Like, since the franchise came back to D.C. from Montreal, is he the single most important Washington National? We'll talk about that in the 5 o'clock hour. Jahan Dotson, one-on-one at 6:30. Talk to him after training camp today, so plenty to stay tuned for throughout the rest of the program. Let's go to the phones now, the Ace Law listener line. If you're in a wreck, Ace Law helps you get a check. Call 8888-ACE today. 8888-ACE-LAW today. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. Our question for right now, who do you want to see play against the Bengals? Who do you not want to see play against the Bengals? I've spent a lot of time thinking about this in terms of the value of preseason, so curious to hear from you all. Let's start off with Mark. Mark, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Yeah, I would definitely want to see Sam Howell play. I think that every year we come back, we have something new. This year we have a new quarterback, but we also have a new offensive coordinator. So they're going to need to develop timing. You know, he's going to need to develop timing with his receivers. He needs to gel with his offensive line so he makes good calls, because I'm wondering about the sack that he took the other day. Was it that he didn't make the right call at the line, or did the line blow it? So I just think that for this season to be successful, this is the last chance for him to really get a good tune-up. Hey, thanks for having me.
Yep. No, thanks, Mark. It's a good call. So to directly answer the kind of question there, I don't know whether that was rhetorical or an actual question. The line did not screw up on the two sacks that he took. Those were on Sam, either not calling the correct protection, I think in one case, and then the other one he just, like, the correct protection was called based off of the pre-snap look, and you just got to know if post-snap they do something different, then you got to get the ball out, and he didn't get the ball out. Like, sometimes the solution to pressure is get rid of the ball, whether it's at someone's shoelaces or at their numbers. And Sam failed to do that. And yes, he's going to face pressure. And now, I don't want to like overblow something because my guy Orlovsky's talking about it on ESPN. But like, if Dan's talking about it on ESPN, clearly other teams are seeing this too. That like, hey, maybe we can get home with some pressure. Now, I will say, as that game went on the other night, they did a lot better job with pressure. So I don't think teams are just going to be able to blitz literally Sam nonstop and just have great results. Because the other thing that to remember here is that if you blitz, that's less guys you have in coverage. So you want to bring 7? Cool. So now you got De'Ami Brown and the top 3 guys, or, Dotson, Samuel McLaurin, and Logan Thomas, or Cole Turner, or one of the backs leaking out. Like, you got all those dudes running around in space with one-on-ones, or running around space in a shoddy zone because there's not as many players in it as there usually are if you drop 7 in coverage. Like, you really want to do that? You really want to give these playmakers space? Like, blitzing is high risk, high reward. And people like to focus on the rewards a lot, but like, there's a reason teams don't blitz every down. So let's be clear about that. And Bieniemy is a pretty damn good play caller to understand what teams are trying to do, and like, he'll use that aggression against them. And whether it's in the screen game, which obviously has not been great so far, or just finding other ways to get the ball out of Sam's hands quickly, like, got a lot of trust in Bieniemy to be able to solve some of this pressure. And the thing is about Sam, the caller is correct that this would be the last chance to get him ready. But you're not going to see premier pressure packages in a preseason game. Like, you see basic blitzes, but you're not going to see a lot more than that. I think I just think that the risk reward of being this close to the season. So ultimately, to reveal my position here, because I don't know that I've explicitly done that, I would not play Sam, because I think that while I can make a lot of good reasons why, the overriding reason to not play him is he can't get hurt if he doesn't play. And considering what you're going to see from Cincinnati, which is probably a bunch of backups and a pretty vanilla defense, I don't know that he needs more reps against backups and vanilla defenses. Not that they wouldn't help, but I don't know that they help enough to justify the risk of getting this close to the season and then having him go down with whether it's a short-term injury that costs him a game or two and the practice time that goes with it in the regular season, or a long-term injury, which totally screws up the franchise. I just wouldn't risk that for a game that doesn't count in the standings. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that he should play, but that's where I come down for the second straight week. 301-230-0980. Roberto, hola, senor. How we doing?
We are doing fantastic. Everything is bueno in this side of town, baby.
CC.
The District of Champions, baby. And you, mark my words, WC, right? Washington Commanders is also was the world champions, right?
Well,
WC.
hey, the initials work. They got a lot of work to do. All right, who do you think should play or not?
Okay. We're just going to put it out there and do that. Now, no, Sam can sit down. He's done enough for preseason work. He already had a game against a premier defense last year. Let's put that to bed. Let everybody else get ready. And one thing I want to ask, if you can, man, Greg.
What's up?
Ask anybody on EA that on Madden not to put Rivera with the background. It's Chicago's background. What we doing?
I don't know. I didn't catch that yet. I don't have any connections at EA.
Every time he goes do the thing with the media, the background is Chicago's logo. Come on. We need to do better.
We got that. Roberto, muchas gracias. We got that, and we got Sam Howell with no face in the game. We got to get Electronic Arts on the phone. I don't have a direct line there, but we'll see. We'll see if we can just put this out into the universe and be like, hey, Madden, come on. Let's put some respect on this franchise's name that is finally showing itself some respect after 25 years. Okay, we're not going down that rabbit hole. We got a couple more calls on the line. If you're on hold, stay there. Get to you very quickly after the break. And, of course, there's some phone lines open as well. Just a few. So if you want to get in on this, who do you definitely want to see play against Cincinnati? And who do you not want to see play against the Bengals? 301-230-0980. More of your calls next on the Ace Law listener line. Secondary wise, I mean, there's a lot of talk about Forbes. He had, some tough one-on-one reps that were kind of making their way. But
we just talk about that for a second?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is like one-on-ones are designed for the offense to win, and especially the offense to win if they want to take a DB inside towards the middle of the field where there would typically be help. And every single one of everyone being like, oh, he got smoked. It's like, yeah, the dude ran a triple move where the quarterback would have been sacked and then ran to where the help would be.
And also all those are in the red zone, like red zone one-on-ones. So like, yes, like it's just so frustrating when fans get all crazy about it. Because like red zone, you're going to run quarters, like red quarters all the time. So there's going to be a dude standing like right there. Like, if you want to run in, like, good luck. You're going to be dead. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't work that way. Like, go run in there. Fine. Get smoked by that guy. Get smoked by Foster or whoever, or Cam Curl. So it's always super frustrating. And, like, in those man situations, like, in the red zone situations, you'll see the quarterback hold the ball longer because it's like they're running a dig, they're running an out, they're running and if anything, the pressure is more acute in the red zone. So the ball has to be out quicker. So it's like, all this stuff, and it's just like, and so what I will say is I thought his reps were competitive. I thought he was in relatively good position. Did he lose a couple reps? Yes. but I don't think that situation is entirely realistic. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Thinking about a rant today, and you want to know what? I'm in the mood. We're gonna go for it. This is an unplanned rant. It's one I was trying to keep in my back pocket, but I'm just gonna go for it. Some of the comments that I read through on, and look, social media is a cesspool. Social media is people. Social media is fans. Social media is the same calls that we've been getting in sports radio for 30 years put into a tweet or a YouTube comment or whatever. These are real people with real opinions who think these things. And I truly do not understand how some of y'all like sports, because it seems like your entire sports fan existence is miserable. You always want everyone fired, everyone traded. And I truly do not understand how you live that way. Sports are... It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Taking your calls on the Ace Law listener line. If you're in a wreck, Ace Law helps you get a check. Call 8888 Ace Law, 301-230-0980. Who do you want to see play against the Bengals? Who do you not? I asked this after seeing Jacoby Brissett practicing today with the ones. Sam Howell, Ron Rivera's already said not going to play. I guess that could change, but that's the current plan. But it looks like Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel and the first-team offensive line are going to. We'll see what they do on defense. So let's take some more calls. Let's start off with Nate. Thanks for holding through the break, Nate. Much appreciated. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, what's going on, man? No problem. I don't think I need to. I don't need to see Sam Howell. I think I've seen enough of Howell. Like I was telling Anthony when I was talking to him, Sam Howell had 2 preseason games his rookie year. He had the Cowboy game in the regular season. Then he had these 2 preseason games. To me, Sam looks good. He just needs to grow. And I do want to see. I just want to see all the backups. I want to see, who's going to really make the team. I really want to see if Andre Jones is going to make the team, because that's a lot of people have been talking about him a lot. So I really want to see, if he makes the team, and that's pretty much it, really.
All right, man. Appreciate the call. I think that you don't have to worry about Andre Jones. I think that Andre Jones Jr. is going to make the team, and I don't say it's causing problems, but Logan used the term disruptor when we were taping Take Command today, which, by the way, we did at his house. We've been doing that podcast for over a year, almost a year and a half. We have never done it in person until today. So that was fun. All the pregame shows we've done in person, but today we did the podcast in person for the first time. But he used the term disruptor because I don't think they anticipated Jones. Like, they kind of figured, Jones or Henry maybe, but it would definitely be Henry because he's the 5th rounder. And then all of a sudden it's like, we have to keep Andre Jones. And so it's a funky position, that D-line group, and he's the guy that I think kind of crashed the party and has secured a spot. But you will see him this weekend for sure. And I guess there could be, if he just gets dominated, maybe you feel like you can squeeze him through the practice squad, and maybe he's not quite ready yet. But I think he's set. But you'll definitely still see a lot of reps for the backups, and that's the thing to remember here, too. You want to get the evaluation. There's preparation on one side of a preseason game and evaluation on the other. And I think sometimes we focus a little bit too much on the evaluation, and I think there are other times we focus a little bit too much on the preparation. If these reps are good for Sam, why doesn't he play the whole game? Because you do want to get Jacoby prepared. You do want to get not necessarily Jake Fromm, because he's your third quarterback. You do want to evaluate him as is this a guy we want to keep on the practice squad or not? But you want to evaluate those end of roster guys, and if you just give all the reps to the starters to prepare them in the name of preparation, you never get the evaluation. It's a very tough balance that these coaches have to deal with. And it's important that we keep all these factors in mind as we decide, what we actually want to see and how we think actually is the best way to prepare for a season, both prepare the players, but also prepare the roster. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Daryl. Daryl, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, thank you, Craig. Yeah, I think that they need to play the whole offense, man. I like to see Sam Howell. The only way you can get ready for the physicality of football is you have to play it. You can't just turn it on and off. But, money and contracts have come into play. So, and to me, it puts players in harm's way because they're not preparing physically for the game, And so I think that they need to play a quarter. I remember one year when Tom Brady played a whole half in the fourth preseason game. I mean, that's the mentality that you have to have, next man up, so we can't go in there hesitant and passive. And, you got to go in there aggressive. It's just like what the enemy said about when McLaurin got hurt. He said, hey, I saw that he was all right. We were back on attack mode. That's the football mentality that you have to have. I don't want to see Casimir or Andre Jones because they have proven to me enough, that we need to use both of them. I haven't seen nobody like Casimir since Banks and Brian Mitchell. So Casimir should have a slot, and so should Andre Jones. And we don't know what's going to happen with Chase Young's knee. So the best thing close to Chase Young right.
Oh my God. I can't take some people seriously. And I was just waiting, and then he talked about Chase Young's knee when his knee is fine and we're worried about his shoulder because that's where the stinger is. To say that you need to see the starters and pretend like there's no risk there, and then to say, well, we can't risk Andre Jones and Kaz Allen, you are too online. You are too focused on the wrong things, which is amazing for someone who calls in and talks about an old school mentality. We can't risk Kaz Allen. I don't need to see. Yes, Kaz Allen's not even on the team right now. He still has to prove it. I guarantee you that Dax Milne, I'm not saying this is what I would do, but I would guarantee you Dax Milne's ahead of Kaz Allen on the roster. And if you think Kaz Allen is Brian Mitchell, man, Anthony, B. Mitch is not still in the building, is he? He's long gone by now, right?
Yeah, I don't even know if he was in the building today.
If B. Mitch is listening, I hope he's not crashed into a barrier. That is so insulting to Brian Mitchell. Brian Mitchell is the second leading all-time yardage gainer in NFL history. What are you talking about? Yeah, Kaz Allen's had some nice catches. He's had a couple of nice returns. Dude is not Brian Mitchell. And then also, who did he put in? Was it Banks?
Yeah, Banks. Brandon
Banks?
Yeah, Brandon Banks.
Brandon Banks' career statistics. Brandon Banks' career in the National Football League lasted 3 years. He started 0 games. He gained less than 1,000 total yards in punt returns. Did have a nice kick return career for a couple of years. Had a 96-yard touchdown as a rookie. Did he ever even catch a ball? I'm only seeing, there's receiving. He had 14 targets in his entire career. To his credit, his final year in 2012, he was targeted 8 times and had 8 receptions. Anthony, you know how many yards those receptions were for? Total, 8 receptions.
70 yards.
Try 15.
Screens.
All screens that went nowhere. He had a 1.9 yard per reception.
15 yards. Good.
So maybe sure, Kaz Allen can be Brandon Banks. I am appalled on behalf of Brian Mitchell that his name was just put in that conversation. Appalled. And I'm only 20% acting. Yes, Andre Jones Jr. has been a revelation. But do not take low expectations and people exceeding them as actual greatness. What are we doing? You have to see more of the offense because it hasn't produced, but I've seen enough of guys who have never played an NFL snap. Yikes, man. Yikes. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. Man, that was rough. That was rough. I do think, there's some philosophical points I agree with, in fairness to Daryl. There is a mentality thing. But how does your mentality help you when you have someone who's hurt? Mentality doesn't help you from the sidelines. The number one ability is availability, which is the risk management side of all of this. Let's not play dumb here and play football tough guy and pretend like, it'll be fine. It's just an injury. One, they're human beings and injuries hurt. It's physical pain that these men are going through, and we should not be flippant about that. Two, from a productivity standpoint, don't be flippant about the risk for injury. It's an NFL tackle football game. Dudes get hurt. If you can avoid that for a game that doesn't count in the standings, that seems like a pretty good reason. And specifically for your quarterback, who, if you want to talk about toughness and is there an argument to be made, which is the road I thought he was going to go down first, about contact and kind of callousing the body and getting used to that for offensive and defensive linemen, for linebackers, for running backs, even to an extent for the perimeter guys. Sure. For a quarterback, you hope he's never has to be physical. Your goal is nobody touches him the entire season. He gets to wear a yellow jersey in practice. He doesn't in the game. That seems important. Not to say that there aren't other reasons that Sam Howell should potentially play in the preseason, but developing physicality as a quarterback is not one of them. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Ray real quick. Ray, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Okay. Hello?
Yep, you're on the radio.
Hi. So, just for me, I stubbed my toe yesterday and it hurt, right?
Cool story.
That's how I see it. Well, you know what I'm saying? It's like what you were talking about, your injury thing. For me, it's like, hey, it's going to happen. But I'm going to agree with you in saying, hey, Sam Howell needs the reps. So unless coaches really see, you know what? This guy is going to be long-term, going to be here, so we don't want to risk anything. And if he's doing so good in practice, that's probably why they're going to put in.
Ray,
Kobe,
let me ask you a question.
That's the only.
Ray, let me ask you a question. Do you look both ways before you cross the street?
Of course.
Okay. Could you still get hit by a bus?
Of course.
Okay, so you understand the concept of mitigating risk, right?
Yes.
Okay, so again, I'm not saying that, to me, you're making two separate arguments. Sam Howell needs the reps is different than, he could get hurt whenever. Those are two separate parts of a discussion here. Yes, he could, but let's not pretend he could get hurt anyway, so let's just throw him out there. No, he gets to wear a yellow jersey in practice, which means he never gets hit as long as everyone follows the rules. And yes, he could still get hurt if he rolls out and twists an ankle. That can happen. There's a price to be paid for preparing for the season, right? There's a physical toll of work, of physical exertion. But if you can give a guy a day off of that, he's probably not going to get hurt on that day. He could stub his toe, but that was going to happen anyway. You couldn't protect that. if you drop Sam Howell back in this preseason game and he gets blasted by an unblocked defensive end and misses a couple weeks, or worse, that's something you could have prevented. So, is there an argument to be made for Sam Howell playing because he's a young player who could use reps? Absolutely. But specific to the quarterback position, when you are this close to the season, and that is a position where you can protect your players in practice in a different way, then, hey, the risk of an offensive lineman is pretty similar in practice as it is in a game. I think we're having a very different discussion. Perhaps we should take some more calls. We'll discuss in the break. We also have some other stuff to get to. Jesse Dougherty at 5 o'clock as well on Stephen Strasburg's announcement today that he is going to retire, or pending announcement that he's going to retire. That is all still to come. Plus, don't forget, 6:30, our one-on-one with Jahan Dotson here on the Team 980.
Here's what's trending.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 on a call-filled Thursday, 301-230-0980. We'll take your calls in the next hour about Stephen Strasburg as he is set to retire. That breaking news a little bit earlier today. Is he the most significant Washington National ever? I guess the fancier, trickier way to phrase that question is he the most significant player to ever wear a Washington Nationals jersey? Because obviously you want to get into franchise history and the whole deal. But like since the team moved back and was the Washington Nationals, is he the most important guy? We'll talk to you about that coming up at actually, I guess in the next hour. I'm just going to say we'll see how long we chat with Jesse Dougherty about that coming up at 5 o'clock. More Commanders now, though, wrapping up the calls on the Ace Law listener line. Call 8888 Ace Law if you're in a wreck so they can get you a check. 301-230-0980 is our phone number. Who do you want to see play? And perhaps more importantly, we haven't got a lot of these. Who do you not want to see play for any particular reason? I guess we got one or two of those, and some of them were very silly in my opinion. But who do you want to see play? Who do you not want to see play against the Bengals for the Commanders? Let's go to Lee. Lee, thanks for holding through the break.
No, I live in the area, but I just got off work.
Lee. Oh, Jesus. Anthony, I try to make Anthony's checking on Lee. All right, is Lee Anthony thumbs up, thumbs down? Thumbs down. All right. If you're gonna call into a radio show, you know, you owe it to not to me, you owe it to your fellow listeners to like be ready to go when we pull you on the air. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna be mean. I will push back on opinions. I'm trying to be better about being nice to callers. But, Anthony, I need some of the callers to be nice to me.
Yeah, I don't know what Lee seemed like he was at a light or, in a community. I don't know what he was doing.
Seemed like he was either getting or giving directions.
Having a whole conversation, though, with, like, multiple people. It wasn't just one person. It was, like, multiple people. I don't know.
That could have been fun.
I'm just glad he didn't drop anything. That was crazy.
Yeah, we don't want to be putting people's business out there on
Exactly.
the radio, but like also he called us. We didn't call him. This is always a funny thing. Like, when you say, like if you say to a flight attendant, or not a flight attendant, like a gate agent, if they're like, have a safe flight, and you're like, you too, and it's like, oh, they're not flying.
Yeah.
They stand at the gate. That's their job. Or like those kind of awkward situations. It's like when callers call in, they're like, thanks for having me. I appreciate the sentiment, but I'm like, you called us. We didn't book you, but I do appreciate that you gave us some of your time and gave your opinion on the show today. So I'll take that. It's like a half step to the when you say you too to something that doesn't make sense at all.
Are you one of those people that says you too to the flight attendant? I mean, well, not the gatekeeper, actually.
The gate agent? The gatekeeper? That'd be really funny. You should call him the gatekeeper.
The
It
agent?
is I, the gatekeeper. I decide if I get you on the plane. Apparently they're Irish.
I usually say thanks.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty. I think we've all done it. Whether it's that like specific gate agent example, but like, I'm trying to think of other ones. Enjoy. If someone's like enjoy this service, and you're like thanks, you too, and it's like no, you gave me the thing. Or like, enjoy the meal. It's like, oh, thanks, you too. It's like, oh, you were my waiter. You were my server. Why did I tell you that? I think we've all done it in a moment of just, foggy brain. But I can't say it's something that like some people do it all the time because they're just awkward people and they just have trouble. That's fortunately, not to judge anybody, but fortunately, that's not me.
Yeah.
I don't have that issue. Yesterday we had a different issue. We couldn't get our waiter.
Really?
Remember when we were at lunch?
Oh,
Took us forever to get the check.
Yeah, that actually, yeah.
That was not great. By the way, throwback to yesterday. We were talking about my Uber driver yesterday. I had another someone who was listening, which I assume we're on in Ubers all around D.C. right now. People listen to the show as they drive around and drive Uber, Lyft, or whatever. But I had someone who was an Uber driver tweet me and go, hey, I heard your Uber story where you gave the guy 2 stars. I'm an Uber driver. I would have given them 1 star. So I felt vindicated. I felt vindicated on that front. All right. We got time for one more call. We'll do this quickly. D-Dub, get us back on track here with the Commanders. Who do you either want to see or not want to see?
I don't want to see Chase to play. I don't want to see McLaurin playing. But
you're not going to have to worry about them because they're hurt.
Thank you. But I do want to see Rodriguez playing, man. That rascal looked like he got it, man.
Yeah, no, I agree.
He looked like he fits in the NFL to me.
No, I think you're 100% correct. I think that he is a guy that, well, one, you're going to get to see him. But he is a guy that I actually hope gets like a decent workload, because after you have that fumble, like I want to see you stack some carries without it. I want to see you get in different situations. I want to see you have to pass pro. I want to see you have to get out in the routes. But yeah, that dude's making the team. That dude's going to be a part of this offense this year. He's going to get carries. I don't think you have to worry about that. All right, that's hour 1. Hour 2, take a turn away from the Commanders a little bit and talk about well, man, I don't even know how to describe this guy. I don't know if he's a Mount Rushmore athlete in D.C., but certainly he's in the conversation. Stephen Strasburg going to retire. Why ultimately is now the time? What was the final straw? Where do the Nationals go from here? How does this affect all kinds of different situations? We're going to talk about it all with Jesse Dougherty, the Washington Post next. The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show, hour number 2 on this Thursday on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. More Commanders talk later in the show. Who's going to make the team along the offensive line? Logan and I debated on Take Command. You'll hear that a little bit later. Also, my one-on-one with Jahan Dotson at 6:30. Right now, though, it is time for the top story of the day, which takes us away from the football team to the baseball team. It's time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Pleasure to chat with a guy I haven't had the chance to talk to in quite a while, as the Nationals haven't been front page news, but they are back in it. And it is my pleasure to welcome to the show Jesse Dougherty. Jesse, what's up, man?
Good, man. How are you?
I am doing well. Not exactly the happiest note to bring you back to the show on, but certainly an interesting one. Reports come out that Stephen Strasburg is going to retire, the 35-year-old who has barely pitched since the Nationals won the World Series, and he signed that $245 million contract. Why ultimately is now the time for Strauss to say, like, I'm done trying to do the comeback thing, this is it?
Yeah, I mean, he just had tried for the last few years, and it just was really apparent this summer that it wasn't going well. I mean, even back in the spring, and he was trying to inch back toward playing with lower body exercises, and even those would sort of, bother the whole right side of his body, and he would get that familiar tingling in his neck and shoulder. And I think it became really apparent in recent months, and after some setbacks over the winter when he had progressed to bullpen sessions, that just wasn't going to work. And I think our headline writers at the Post are great. They had one of the stories we did on him last September mentioned how he gave his body to the sport, and I think it's sort of no better way to put it. He kind of put it all on the line, and a lot of wear and tear, a lot of years of wear and tear finally caught up, and it's something he just was not able to recover from.
When you say all this, my mind immediately flips from like broadcaster mode to trainer mode, and the physical fitness work that I do and some of the nerve issues that I've seen over the years. And I just wonder, what's his quality of life like? Like, is this something that just flares up when he tries to ramp things up and pitch, and that he's just tired of trying that? Or is enough damage been done when you say give his body to the game that, like, this is a guy that's going to be affected the rest of his life? Like, luckily he's made a lot of money, and, there's a lot of good things that baseball has brought him. But, like, how significant, I guess, is this sacrifice that he's made to the game?
Yeah, I can't speak for this exact moment, so I want to make that really clear. The last I spoke with him, it's the last public comments he's made about the whole situation, where last September I've also reported in this summer about the struggles he's going with. So I can't credibly say that at this moment he's dealing with any issues outside of when he tries to do physical activity or throw a baseball. But what I can say is in the past, I mean, there were instances of it greatly affecting his everyday life and greatly affecting his livelihood beyond just the attempts to pitch. And that included just numbness in his hand, and when he stood for too long, and having to lay down on his side and press his hand to his chest to have that numbness go away. And I heard of having a little bit of trouble opening a door with his right arm, and obviously his small children that he wants to play with, and he's really I know him to be a really sort of committed dad, and obviously in these years that he's been away from the team, probably more than ever has been around his kids. So that's another consideration. So while I can't sort of speak for like Stephen Strasburg in August of 2023 and how his life looks, I do know that there were times in the last few years when he was trying to recover from TOS and the surgeries that he underwent, that it was really affecting his quality of life and his ability to sort of carry that out day to day.
Jesse Dougherty covers the Nats, of course, for the Washington Post, with us here on the Hoffman Show. So I think obviously the long-term planning of the Nationals, which is its own thing because of Rizzo's contract situation, but putting that aside for the second, whoever's going to be thinking about the Nationals long-term probably wasn't counting on Strasburg returning. But from a financial, from a planning, from whatever other standpoint, it affects their long-term prognosis. Like, how does this announcement affect the Washington Nationals?
Yeah, so we don't know all the financial details yet. I think we're really trying to report those and as soon as we can. I think that during the season, it has an effect on the payroll, obviously, because he has a very big contract, but he hasn't been taking up a roster spot because in season, just sort of based on minutia, when you put guys on the long-term injured list, they don't count towards your 40-man count. Different in the offseason, though. So I mean, from a very practical perspective, they'll have one more spot to work with in the offseason because this will take him off the active roster and the 40-man roster, so that gives a little bit more flexibility in terms of protecting guys from the Rule 5 draft or picking up waiver claims or signing free agents, whatever it may be. So that's sort of the most practical change. I think that there's a lot of talk about like payroll, and I think there's two ways to look at it. One is the actual payroll that counts toward the competitive luxury tax, competitive balance tax threshold, which is sort of used to be a really relevant thing for the Nationals year to year. Now it's more relevant for teams like the Mets and Padres that are either spending over that or close to it. But also, like most owners would tell you, I mean, if you ever got to talk to them, which is very rare, that they're not as worried about necessarily their CBT count, which is sort of the money that's like, on the books in terms of like the average annual value of each contract. They're more worried about what they're actually just spending. So it's like, like for like anyone, like your budget is your budget. So for the Nationals, as we know over the years, it's a lot of deferred payments to guys like Max Scherzer and other players. Strasburg had deferred money in his contract. So like whether or not they settled to make the amount lower or whether or not they settled just to sort of get him off the roster and it's still going to get paid the same amount year to year, like they're going to worry about the money they're actually spending. So I don't think it means like Strasburg's off the books. Now they're going to go like sign 5 players because it still is a financial hit year to year. And it still is something that this team and the ownership group shoulders from a financial perspective where, yes, if in 3 years from now they're competing for a championship and they're close to the competitive balance tax and, that they're and we're saying, well, they don't have Strasburg on the books. Like, then we can kind of go back to this, like, well, if they're still paying him, that's still relevant. So I think that's sort of like the biggest thing where, like, maybe a roster spot and flexibility comes back into play, but the money is still the money. And then we'll see how it actually shakes out from, like, a year-to-year standpoint post-retirement. And that will be, like, really interesting to break down as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is. You bring up such a great point across sports, baseball or otherwise. Like, we spend so much time talking about the cap, and obviously in other sports it's harder or softer depending on what league we're talking about. But owners just care about the money that comes out of their pocket. Like the general managers can deal with the cap. Ownership cares about the money, which brings us to like the actual ownership question too. This deferred money hanging out there, or potential to maybe do something with it now that he's not going to play out the contract. Obviously, it sounds like you guys are working on the details of all of that. Like, do you think this has any effect on the sale potentially of the Nationals or not with this money part of it hanging out there?
I don't think so. I mean, again, because like the Lerners aren't going to sell the team, theoretically, and then say like, we'll take the Strasburg money with us, right? Like anything that sort of like is on the team books beyond this season will get passed on to a new owner. So I don't think it like demonstrably changes the outlook or sort of like the situation or the asset that a potential new owner would be buying. I think it's sort of the same. And I think they knew, or anyone who's reviewed the books or reviewed the financial situation, maybe knew there was a chance that Strasburg might retire or reach a settlement or do something different than just play out the string or try and rehab for the next 3 years. But again, like that contract was still signed for $245 million. It's still a major financial commitment no matter what happens from here. And I think that was like always been kind of a clear part of the picture, regardless of what he decided at the end of this year or any time in the future.
2 more things real quick for Jesse. Dougherty of the Washington Post, of course, covers the Nationals with us here on the Hoffman Show. So the last part about kind of the closure here would be the emotional closure. Strauss is such a respected guy in DC sports because of what he's been and what the team that he was a part of. So I'm curious, being around the club day to day, now knowing like this is coming to a close, emotionally around the team, not waiting for him to come back, not seeing him struggle to try to come back anymore, and having that, again, to use the word, closure. What does this mean emotionally for the Nationals franchise?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know if a lot of guys were like waiting for him to walk through the door. I think it's been pretty clear for a while that he was going to have a really hard time getting back to the point where he could actually like compete with them and join the rotation. And frankly, I mean, as you know, like there are fewer and fewer guys now that played with him, which is a really weird concept and sort of the reality for the Nationals roster makeup and the stage they're at in their rebuild. I mean, even just the players who were on the roster who played in 2019 at all, or is Patrick Corbin, who pitched today in New York. It's Victor Robles. It's Carter Kieboom, had a short stint in 2019, as we all remember. And Tanner Rainey, a reliever, was on that team who's recovering from Tommy John surgery. But it's a really small list. And guys who even like shared Strasburg, a locker room with Strasburg, or who know him as a regular teammate, or have seen him around the park, frankly, regularly. It's a really small group. And I'm sure, just being competitors and knowing what it takes to get to the mound and compete when healthy, let alone when trying to do so when saddled by, such a vast medical history and such a tough condition like thoracic outlet syndrome. Like, I'm sure they all feel for him, and there is sort of I'm sure there's some sort of like emotional effect of having some closure, having some clarity on what his situation is. But like, I also don't think there was like ever like, well, we just gotta wait till Strasburg is back and then we're going to really make a run here. Like it wasn't like now they can kind of be settled, but that's not going to happen. I think that was long ago kind of pretty apparent that wasn't going to be in the cards.
Yeah, no, definitely. You make such a good point about the roster turnover too. Like I'd imagine for a lot of guys, he's almost a ghost. It's like, oh yeah, that guy that used to be here and still kind of maybe is around. So I think that's a point well taken. And Jesse, I'm going to ask you to kind of give the perspective here from your seat on the question I'm going to ask the audience next, which is this. Since the franchise moved back to Washington, so for anyone who's ever put on a specifically Washington Nationals jersey, is he the most important guy to the franchise? Or where does he rank kind of on your hierarchy of most important Washington Nationals over the last 20-plus years?
Yeah, I mean, I think even though I've covered this team for 6 seasons now, I feel a little bit unqualified to answer this just because I started in 2018 and I don't want to overstep to those who, those early years are really important to them. But, I mean, it's such a cop-out answer, but like if you actually talk about sort of like a most important influential figure, it's like him and Ryan Zimmerman are 1, 2 in some order, and then it's everybody else. I think that's like pretty clear. My argument for Strasburg would be that, his debut, I think, really legitimized the Nationals in a way that had never been the case. And while Zimmerman was there and kind of staring at this empty cupboard around him, it took Strasburg and it took that draft and that debut and then everything after it to really put the Nationals on the map. And that's not even always just like positive stories too. Like the shutdown sort of was this whole kind of crazy thing, but it was a national news story, right? And like it was a way for the Nationals we talked about that was more about being competitive and about great players rather than like, misspelling the names, the team name or sort of like being in an old stadium, whatever it may be. Like it was more about turning the corner. And like I think sometimes like people think that teams that get bagged on or teams that get negative press around sort of like playoff runs or managerial searches, like that means you're legitimate and that people actually care about you. And I think Strasburg brought a lot of that to DC in a way that had never been the case. And then, of course, the World Series run. So while Zimmerman was, of course, there and playing and hit some big home runs in that run, I mean, we all know what Strasburg did. And the 6 appearances in October were felt like the one after it was better than the one before it somehow. And 3 innings in the wild card out of the bullpen, Game 6 just shoving against the Astros to force Game 7. Like those are things you just will never really be replicated. I don't think by a pitcher in a playoff run, especially now with all the usage rules and all the teams implicate and everything like that. So he's from a past time, I think, and obviously his body didn't hold up, but maybe that's instructive in some ways too for the next generation of managers and trainers. But for what he was in some of those big moments, like there was no one better.
Yeah, no, 100%. And there's irony, of course, there with, him being a guy who kind of broke the rules when, the talk about him, as you referenced early in his career, was them shutting him down and all that stuff. So great perspective, Jesse. Really appreciate your time. And hopefully we'll have you back for talking more baseball as the Nats continue to play well.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Jesse Dougherty, everybody. If you're a Nats fan, you've got to read his work, WashingtonPost.com/sports. When we get back, I ask you that question. Is Stephen Strasburg the most important Washington National that we have seen since the team returned to D.C.? And I will admit, I'm a bit like Jesse here. Like those early years, I wasn't here. I started, started covering D.C. sports in 2015 when I moved here. I was on the Commanders beat for a long time, paid attention to the Nationals certainly, but more tangentially. I'm not the world's biggest baseball guy. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that you are, or pretend that I am, but I know we have some great, people that are listeners that love baseball, and I think baseball is a great local sports radio topic and especially a great caller topic because the people that care have such great deep knowledge of the game. So I'm going to rely on y'all here because I think it's a pretty fascinating discussion. I certainly do have some thoughts of my own that I can share next. 301-230-0980. Is Strasburg, as he announces his retirement, is he the most important Washington National to ever put on the uniform? 301-230-0980. Your calls next.
DC has a new home for your...
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always alive as well on the free Odyssey app. Take a couple calls here. Phone lines are wide open right now, so you can get in if you are thinking about it. 301-230-0980. With a simple question, who is the best Washington National to ever put on the uniform? And I'm going to try to rephrase that a little bit. Like, who's the best Washington National to, like, most important Washington National to the Washington Nationals, right? Because you could say, like, you could elevate to Bryce Harper and say, like, that dude's the best player who's ever played here if you wanted to, right? His peak, like, he was, the second best player in baseball, probably behind Mike Trout for a couple years. He was right there with Trout for a couple years. Obviously Scherzer was incredible. And I think both those guys belong on, like, the top 10 list, maybe even the top 5 list. In terms of most important to the club over the course of the club's history. But when you talk about the combination of best and most important to the team, like, Harper is not in the conversation for number one because he left before the World Series. They got one World Series. He wasn't a part of it. There's a lot of the other stuff that I think happened with Strasburg in terms of the legitimacy of the franchise and people carrying that. It was Strauss and Bryce together. The hype, the excellence, all that, but only one of them was here when it eventually paid off. So who is the most important Washington National to ever put on the jersey? Where do you have Stephen Strasburg on your list? 301-230-0980. Anthony, we don't have any calls at the moment, so we can certainly wait for a few. But in it's not a super long segment, so you and I can chop this up too. Who are the nominees? Strasburg, for sure.
Are you saying, when you say best player, I think
the most important Washington National.
Okay. If we're going to say that, I would definitely lean Strasburg as being the most important. And most of that has to do with the 2019 run that he had. We didn't have too much success in the playoffs outside of that, to be honest. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't want to say he obviously did not single-handedly win them a World Series, but he was probably the most important piece on that team.
Yeah, he was. It's just the fact that how clutch he was. I think it speaks volumes to what he did in the postseason. I don't know. I'm on Twitter right now, browsing some stuff, and he was 6-2, like, in the playoffs when it came down to it. Only had an ERA of 1.46. So I think that speaks volumes. 71 strikeouts.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible.
I think just off those stats alone, and I know stats aren't everything, but they speak volumes.
I mean, yeah, it's nuts because Strauss in the regular season never won 20 games, which feels wild. He won 18 though that year. I mean, his record was always good. 2013 kind of being the exception, where he was 8-9, and of course, wins and losses only go so far as baseball pitchers go, because he goes 15-6 in 2012. He has a better ERA the next year and goes 8-9. Them's the breaks, and in fact, that 3.00 ERA he had in 2013 was the second best of his career, in terms of full seasons that he pitched. So, like, he was remarkable, though, in that 2019 run. And I think that when you talk about the importance, that's the tail end of his importance. The front end is the stuff that Jesse mentioned in the last segment, where he gave legitimacy to the franchise as people became interested in them and winning as winners in a major way, as opposed to just kind of this plunky team that was really just the Expos reincarnated, fairly incompetent in a lot of ways, and played in an old football stadium that was a dump and didn't need to be taken seriously. All right, now the calls are going, and there's a couple of folks I know that have one of the guys that I have in mind on my list as most important. So let's start off with Michael. Mike, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig, how are you this afternoon?
I'm good. Who do you think's the most important Washington National?
No shade on Strasburg whatsoever. The guy was phenomenal in the postseason. I think the most important guy that really put legitimacy into the team was when Jason Worth signed here. as a free agent. He kind of made the Washington a destination for, my God, if Jason Worth is going, maybe we can get it done. I'm not a historian. I don't know the years. But I just remember thinking, he kind of opened the door and got it going and kind of made us legit. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, man. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. He was definitely on my list. Ace Law listener line, 301-230-0980. You're in a wreck. Ace Law helps you get a check. Call him at 8888 Ace Law. Let's go to Al. Al, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
I mean, you're going to come to me after that guy, and you know that I'm going to say the same thing. But yeah, Jason Worth, and look, the reality is it's an easy list to rattle off, right? Strasburg, Zimmerman, Jason Worth, Bryce Harper. But there's a lot of guys that were there when this turnaround happened too, like Gio, oh God, I'm forgetting now. Who's the outfielder who ended up retiring early? We traded him.
Well, you had
Span.
Oh yeah, Denard Span. I mean, like you had guys like Adam Eaton that obviously came in the World Series year later, but like short-term guys that had a major impact for sure.
Right, but there were guys that were here for 3, 4, 5 years from that span when we started to get better from 2011 on.
For sure. Yeah, Span's a good one. And I agree with you, Al, that Worth is probably the guy. Like, if you want to talk about the non-homegrown guys, there's two that, to me, really stand out. And it's for kind of the same reason. It's Worth and Scherzer. Like, Worth comes in and brings a legitimacy, and in a lot of ways opens the door for Scherzer to eventually come in and take that, and they go from, like, really, really competitive to, like, are they the favorites every year? And then ultimately it pays off in 2019. And obviously they had some really good teams and some first-place teams, some teams that probably should have been better in the playoffs or definitely should have been better in the playoffs before Scherzer. But when he comes in, they go from, like, oh, wow, they did it again to, like, they should be doing this every year in a different way because you had those two dudes, Scherzer, who was more reliable in terms of a durability, and Strasburg at the top of the rotation, along eventually with Corbin, with Gio Gonzalez, and that whole staff. Let's wrap up with Tim. Tim, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig. As someone who actually saw the Nationals come in as a kid, I honestly do think that Ryan Zimmerman is probably the most important National of all time, but it's only slightly above Strasburg. And if you wanted to do a top five, it's probably Zimmerman and Strasburg are up there right next to each other. Scherzer is third, Worth is fourth, and then you can debate who fifth is. It probably goes to Harper, but I would put Soto in there. But that's just me. And Strasburg also started something because around that time, a lot of young superstars got drafted to D.C. I mean, around that time, John Wall got drafted, Bradley Beal got drafted, Kirk Cousins and RG3 got drafted during that time. Trent Williams got drafted around that time. Strasburg was part of a really big young wave, and he's an important person, and we will always thank him for 2019.
Yeah, Tim, that's a really great point, the larger context there. Zimmerman's like Mr. National. So it's hard to argue with the guy who gets the nickname Mr. National is not the most important guy. But I do think that what Strasburg did to elevate, I would put him number one. I think Zimmerman's probably right there. I think it has, like, if you're going to make that top five list, Tim's list is the same as mine. Up until number 5, I would definitively put Harper over Soto. Well, actually, I don't know, because what Soto did for the World Series team, even though he was here for a shorter time because they traded him when he was 22 years old, one, what he did in the postseason that year might actually elevate him over Harper. And two, his tail here in terms of what they got in return, if some of these dudes that they traded for or traded him for wind up re-kicking the franchise into a competitive gear, maybe Juan Soto does go above Harper because of the longevity pull that Harper has and that elevation of them into an elite stratosphere, and him, the home run derby and being in the MVP conversation and all that stuff that he did gets diminished compared to Soto's longer tail that he has with the franchise. I don't know. That's an interesting thought exercise that maybe we'll do another day. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, How about a little some thoughts about the Commanders' offensive line? Who's going to make the club? Logan and I debated in Take 5, which is our miniature edition of Take Command. I don't know if we've ever played that for you here on the radio show, but we're going to do that next.
This is DC's home for Maryland Terrapins basketball.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up in about 10 minutes, I signed up for a fitness race, and I want to see if Anthony thinks he could beat me in it. And then maybe we'll sign Anthony up live on the air. You got to stay tuned and find out. Our training camp pick 6 at 6, coming up for one final time at 6 o'clock. Because training camp is over. That's why it's the last one. Pick 6 will continue into the regular season, but our training camp initial version comes to a close at 6 o'clock, and Jahan Dotson at 6:30. Right now, though, who's going to make the team along the Commanders' offensive line? Logan and I debated on Take 5, our 5-minute edition that comes out a couple times a week of Take Command.
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take 5, it's the 5-minute edition of Take Command, and we're going to try to squeeze a roster projection at offensive line into 5 minutes. Logan Paulsen. I'm Craig Hoffman, usual host of this podcast. You know
the usual host.
Yeah, you never know. One day, someone else might show up.
That is true.
Hopefully it's because we're on vacation and it's not because they fired us. Okay.
All right, here we go.
Who do we got making this Commanders roster at O-line? We obviously did a much larger breakdown in the full edition of the pod yesterday, but Logan, Leno, check.
Yes.
Sadiq, check. Gates, check. Cosme, check. Wiley, check. Where do we go from there?
Yeah, so I think the obvious one for me is Chris Paul. I mean, he's just done a really good job. He's been working at both guard spots, so he feels like your swing guard, right? So let's write Chris Paul here.
And then Cornelius Lucas after him.
Has been
Swing
great.
tackle, check.
He's been awesome. Okay, so that's 7. And I think those guys definitively deserve it. Those are the best 7. Now, the guy that I think we talked about a lot on the main pod was Strasburg. I think he has just come on at a really nice way at the right time, showing he can play both center and guard, which I don't think is a good sign for Larson. I love Larson. I think he's had a great preseason so far, but I think the flexibility and the dynamic ability to play guard, at least so far, it's only been for like a week basically, but I think he's the guy that I would have to say is playing his way into a larger role in this offense. You worded that really nicely earlier.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, and I think that's also like a good thing for roster construction because can you keep your numbers to a minimum with some backup guys on the practice squad while keeping maximal position flexibility? It's Ron's favorite thing, especially on the O-line, for good reason. Because if you keep Strasburg, you now have 2 backup guards and a backup center, so that's 3 positions in 2 players. That is good because that allows you to keep a 7th receiver or 4th tight end or 4th running back or whatever, and that 4th or 5th whatever else is going to be a special teams player. So that's really helpful and beneficial for roster construction. Braden Daniels, other rookie, 4th rounder. Where are we at on him?
You think he's on there? So he's a guy that to me is like he's Ari Kwanjo when I was here. Ari Kwanjo was drafted in the 3rd round.
Great dude, by the way.
Awesome guy and pretty good football player, but like wasn't ready when he got drafted here. And basically like redshirted his first year. So he's active. He's on the 53, but he's inactive every single game day. And that bothered me early on in the process because I felt like he was not playing well. But I do think Braden Daniels is playing better and showing signs of life. Like he's not ready to play NFL football yet, but maybe in 8, 9, 10 weeks he continues to develop and is there. I think because he's your 4th round draft pick, you kind of got to go that way. I mean, what do you think about that, Craig? Yeah,
I think that's 100% correct. Yeah. I think, and I honestly I don't have a huge problem with that. If there's one guy on your roster that you're redshirting, if they had done it with both dudes, if Strasburg wasn't ready and Daniels wasn't ready, it's like, what? Who was scouting the O-line and why were they allowed to do that?
Yeah.
But if it's just Daniels, someone's got to be inactive on game day. And I realize you want those spots for injured guys and you like all your healthy players, but hopefully that's not an issue that you have every single inactive spot filled with an injured player, that you can afford a couple of healthy scratches. And at that point, take the upside swing and I'm fine with it. Not ideal. You wish you draft a guy in the 4th round, especially on this team that could help you. But I think he makes it because he's a 4th rounder, and that's that. So that gets us to how many? We're at 9 now?
That's 9 right there. And I don't know, did they keep 10 last year?
So I'd have to go back and check. I do not have that on me. But I think the other guy that's worth mentioning, but there's a couple other guys that deserve shout-outs, right? Like Mason Brooks had a good camp early, especially got a lot of love. Montero's been great and is a really interesting guy because he's played very well at guard and has played tackle for them in the past. But Trent Scott came in to this preseason game and played very well with the ones at right tackle.
He's had a good camp also. It's funny. He's a guy that he's technically very sound. He's a little undersized, but he's consistent. And he's not going to hit it out of the park every time. He has some in one-on-ones, you know what I mean? He's got some where he's just physically outmatched, right? But I think he's a good football player. The question is how good of a football player is he? Because they seem to be very guard heavy. They've got Charles, Chris, Cosme, Ricky, right? That's 4 guys. I don't think you keep another guard. So I think that's a great point.
So Larson's cooked.
I kind of feel I love Larson. He's a great guy. He's a good football player. It just, if I'm looking at this, do you keep 3 centers on? No, right? You just can't do it. I think Ricky's the guy. And so to me, I look at it and I say, Daniels can't play tackle in a pinch. Can Chris play tackle? I don't think you want that to happen. So do you keep Foster just as a guy who...
Scott,
Scott, excuse me, as a guy who can play both. He can play both tackle spots. And so you say, in terms of value at the moment, I would say that's probably the way I would go. And then you keep 10.
I think if you keep 10, that's probably the play. I think the question then becomes, do you keep Montero instead as someone who's played some guard for you and done a really good job in camp, but also has played tackle. Like, if he's your fourth emergency tackle, but also gives you another option at guard, there's that position flex. The good news is I think both those guys can get the practice squad. I do not think either one of them is going to be signed. Like, would other teams be very happy to have either one of them in their practice squad? Sure, but I don't think there's another team out there that's going to be clamoring to get either one of those guys on the practice or on their active roster, which means you can probably get them through and maybe just operate with 9 and hopefully have both those guys in reserve. And if you have to call them up on a Saturday night, you call them up on a Saturday night.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I forgot at least is like Cosme is a serviceable tackle. So if you need to like bump Chris into right guard, Cosme can play right. If you need a tackle, like Cosme's a really good football player. I know that's going to be less than ideal for him, but I actually think that's your group, honestly. Like those 9 guys, and I think they try to get Scott to the practice squad. I think they try to get Montero to practice squad. I think those other 2 young guys, Brooks and Jones Smith, the guys we've been talking about quite a bit. I think both those guys are practice squad guys, and I think there's your 4 practice squad guys right there, and maybe Larson if you're really feeling really froggy. So 5 guys on practice squad, which seems like kind of holding with tradition. So these 9 active, those 5 to practice squad, and I think you feel pretty gosh darn good about that, honestly.
Yep, and we'll see how they play. This could all change with really good or really poor performances on Saturday. They'll all be playing, which is kind of the fun of preseason, and we'll see how that goes, and then do our roster projection next week. Full thoughts on practice and kind of the preparation for this final preseason game coming up on the full edition of the pod. We will see you then on Take Command. All right, that from Take Command, which you can subscribe to anywhere you get your podcast. If you're a YouTuber and you like watching your podcast, you can see Logan and I on 106.7 The Fans YouTube page. And I can tell you that next edition that former me was just talking about, Podcast Hoffman was just talking about, was recorded today in Logan Paulson's kitchen. Yeah, I went over to his house after practice, and we sat down face-to-face and talked about football. And you can hear that starting tomorrow morning on all of the platforms that Take Command is available, which is all of the podcast platforms. All right, when we get back here on the show, I signed up for a new fitness race, and I want to see if Anthony thinks he could also do it, and could he beat me at it? We will discuss next what? It is what it is. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Pick 6 at 6 coming as well. We're also live on the free Odyssey app.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
Stephen Strasburg, Nationals pitcher, possibly the best National in the history of the franchise, is going to retire. At 35 years old, the nerve issue that has cost him basically every season since he was spectacular in the 2019 World Series, ultimately something he's decided he cannot come back from. The $245 million contract the Nationals gave him, they're still going to be on the hook for it. That from Bob Nightingale of USA Today. Elsewhere around the NFL, elsewhere around Major League Baseball, I should say, major injury in L.A. Shohei Ohtani has another injury to his elbow, the UCL. That is the one that he had Tommy John surgery on in 2018. He is not going to pitch for the rest of the season, and he is going to instead just hit and then see where he's at surgically going into the offseason, where he is expected to be the most expensive free agent in the history of the sport. That is what's trending. I'm Craig Hoffman on the Team 980. the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always alive as well on the free Odyssey app. So, Anthony, I don't want to say like I'm officially challenging you to anything, because you're a fit dude, as am I. But we just signed up for a race, like a fitness race, not like a track race, a fitness race. Like people have seen Spartan or High Rocks. This one is called Deca Strong, DEKA, Deca Strong. And I actually think it'd be a fun little competition between us. And I want your thoughts on this. I'm about to tell you the 10 events, and I want to know whether you're interested in doing it.
10 events already is just like, yo.
What'd you expect? It's called Deca. It sounds like a decathlon. So I don't know if that's actually the name origin, but these are the 10. You ready for this? And by the way,
ears.
Our training camp pick 6 at 6 at the top of the hour. Jahan Dotson at 6:30. All right. Zone 1. They call it 10 zones instead of 10 events. Zone 1. 30 alternating weighted lunges. And it's with a ram, which is like a cylinder. It's weighted. So it'll be a 55-pound cylinder on your shoulders / upper back. And you got to do 15 per leg alternating lunges. All in all, that's actually not a terrible station.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Okay. Then it gets fun. Zone 2, 500-meter row.
Can you give me the equivalent of 500 meters? And is that the length of a football field? Like,
no, 500 meter. It's on you've used like a row,
yeah,
like a rower.
I've used one of those. But I'm just saying, like, how long is 500 meters?
I mean, you're in place, so you're really looking for time. Time, like, I'm gonna do that one in somewhere between 140 and 155.
Okay.
Like, I would be under 2 minutes on that, with a solid effort without, like, if I went all out 500 meters, we're talking, wait, hold on. Do I have that right? Yeah. I think that's right. Yeah, it should be a little under 2 minutes. If I went all out, I could probably do like low 140s, maybe high 130s.
Doesn't sound too bad. I know how to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Very technique based.
Yeah.
Then you start to get real fun. Zone 3, 20 box jump overs or step overs. So you got a 24-inch box, and you got to jump up over it or step up over it. The rule is both feet have to make contact with the top of the box on your way over the box. You can't like jump over the box.
Okay.
All right. And remember, you're doing these consecutively. This is a race against time and your body failing. Zone 4, 25 med ball sit-ups. So you have like a 20-pound medicine ball. You do a sit-up. You toss it up to a target, take it back down. 25 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
That's harder than you think it is. 500 meters ski erg. You ever done the ski ergs before?
Ski erg? No.
So a ski erg is like, it's a vertical, it's almost like a rower type of looking thing, but it's vertical. There's 2 handles, and you have to like pull it down.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen those before, though.
Yep.
Yeah, 500 meters on those. I feel like that's one where I would have you.
Yeah, that one might get me for sure. That one might get me.
My height is an advantage there.
Yeah.
And also the fact that I've done it plenty of times before.
Yeah.
100-meter farmer's carry. So 60 pounds. I don't know if that's 60 pounds. Let me look. Hold on. Let me check this for a second. I don't know if that's 60 pounds per hand or 60 pounds, so it's 30 pounds each hand. My guess is it's 60 pounds per hand. Yeah, each hand. So you got a 60-pound dumbbell in each hand, and you have to walk 100 meters. So like one length of a track. The one straight away.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's doable.
Just,
yeah.
You know, how's your grip going to be after the ski erg in the row?
So when I was in high school, we used to hold the top of the the dumbbell like this. If I can just hold, just pick it up, I think.
Okay, you're not concerned about your grip strength, which means your speed will help you there. Just power walk it.
Yep.
This is the one. Zone 7 through 10 is where it gets disgusting. 25 cals on an air bike. You know the fan bikes?
Yeah.
You ever done one before?
No.
Them things are nasty. I have a weird affinity for them. People think that I'm some kind of sicko because I actually, I crush those things. 25 calories. Like, if I was fresh and all I had to do was 25 calories, I could do that definitely in less than a minute. Probably way less than that. I don't know.
Actually, we used to have those bikes at Prep. They're no longer there, but I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those things are...
I don't like the seat on it, though.
The seat will be fine.
Okay.
So that's next. You just basically exhaust yourself. And then you have to do 20 dead ball wallovers. So you take a 60-pound, dead ball, so like a medicine ball, but the ones that don't bounce at all. And you have to heave it up over a wall that's 7 feet high, I think. Then you have to walk around the wall and shuck it back over.
Bruh. You said 20?
Yeah, 20 times. So 10 each side of the wall.
Do they think I'm the world's strongest man?
It's only a 60-pound ball. Come on.
It's just the fact that you got to keep doing it, though.
Yeah.
Good
then,
gracious.
Zone 9.
It's a burnout.
Zone 9, 100-meter tank push-pull. So a tank is like a sled. It's the big sled that's got the big wheels, and they put it up to a certain resistance level. So it's like a 100-meter sled push-pull situation. And then your last one, when you're just trying to get across the finish line, is weighted burpees. So you got that same thing that we started with, where we put it on our back for the lunges, that same kind of device, 44 pounds this time instead of the 55, and you got to do 20 burpees with it in your hand. So you go down, you chest to the ram, stand back up. By the way, half of these things I would never program for a client. I would never do them on my own workout. I would never do this stuff. But for a competition, sure.
When is this taking place?
September 9th.
That's a Saturday.
It is.
I gotta check my schedule. I think I'm busy that day, Craig.
I bet you do think you're busy that day.
I think I'm busy. I don't know with what, but I think I'm busy.
So the average finish time is something low 20 minutes, 20-ish minutes. My boy David, who is one of the elite race fitness racers in the world, he's a North American champion in something called High Rocks. David's time will be in 11 minutes. He'll do all that. That's disgusting.
I don't work out my legs enough to do everything that is asked.
Well, that sounds like a problem we can fix.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And are you skipping leg day?
You said what?
Are you skipping?
Hold on, I can't hear you, Craig. I think it's the radio.
We'll be back with our pick 6 at 6, and by we I mean definitely me. And we'll see about Anthony. I might kick him off the show.
Attention taxpayers. If you or your business owe the IRS back taxes,
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at 6:30, I spoke today one-on-one with Jahan Dotson. I was like, hey, Jahan, training camp's over. How you feel about it? He's pretty pumped. So we talked about that, talked about how camp has been, talked about his path to the NFL. We talked about all kinds of stuff. You'll hear that interview coming up at 6:30. But right now, it is time for the training camp. Pick 6 at 6.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is time!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
I'm going to be their biggest and harshest critic, but I'm also their number one fan.
All right, let's get right to it with the fact that I was at training camp today, Anthony. And we talked about this earlier in the show, but Jacoby Brissett the last 2 days has been practicing with the first string. And that is super duper interesting because it was done in a way where there was like carded periods and, looks like they're preparing for a game that I would think that their Cincinnati plays on those cards. I don't know why Brissett would be getting the carded periods if they were just looking ahead to Arizona. And a lot of those periods, they would then repeat with guys down the roster who likely won't be on the roster by the time Arizona comes around. So it looks like they kind of wanted to get their guys in the rhythm of what it's like to game plan. And Sam also got some reps with the ones in some of these carded periods. But Jacoby Brissett looks like he's going to start this game on Saturday against the Bengals, and he's going to do it behind the first-team offensive line, and he's going to do it with Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and De'Ami Brown, and Cole Turner, the current top available non-injured players out there as weapons. And Brian Robinson, obviously, in the backfield, and on down the list of guys who are available to Sam Howell week 1 against Arizona. I think this is pretty fascinating. And we debated it in the first hour of the show. So if you want to hear the debate portion, you can certainly rewind in the Odyssey app or check out the podcast after the show. But the benefit of this is you are preparing in case something happens to Sam Howell. And for all of the times over the last couple of years, we've lamented the fact that the backup has had to play and it doesn't look like they've been prepared. I think this is Eric Bieniemy coming in and saying, no, we're going to prepare for everything. And look, today in practice, they treated this like they would treat a Friday practice during the regular season. It looked like where they work on situations like, oh, there's 8 seconds left. We have to complete this ball and get out of bounds. They did some running plays where it's like, hey, get the first down. We win the game. So let me see you take a knee at the end of the play. And so they're working on a lot of this situational type of stuff. And they just seem to be, Anthony, to me, much more prepared for everything in the way that the best teams are than years past where they greet the situation and it's like, oh, well, you kind of wish you had practiced that more. It seems like that was a real emphasis, and you see why teams like Kansas City seem to always be prepared for those situations.
Yeah. My only thing would be how often, do we see, the twos interact with the ones? Or, I guess the backup quarterback get a chance to, go out there and run with the runs. Granted, that has been, largely a part of
every year since 2017 in this franchise.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. It's
in this franchise.
I think that there is, who was it? Oh, it was, what's his name? Tom Moore? No, not Tom Moore. Maybe it was Tom Moore. Anyway, it was something more. The old Colts OC when Peyton Manning was there. Legendary offensive coordinator. And they asked him one year in training camp, why Jim Sorgi, the backup at the time, was not getting reps. And he's like, well, if 18 goes down, we're screwed. And we don't practice screwed. And I think there's something to that. Maybe it was Howard Mudd. Anyway, the point is, I get that. If you're screwed, you're just screwed and you roll with it. And you take the good draft pick and try again next year. But I just don't think that when you've got to back up the quality of Jacoby Brissett and you've had the bad luck that this team has had, you can afford to operate that way because also Sam Howell is not Peyton Manning. Sam Howell is a guy that you hope can be your quarterback for the future, but you're not 100% sure is going to be here for the next decade in the way that the Colts were sure that, hey, look, if we get screwed this year and Peyton Manning's out, well, we no, he's coming back next year and he's going to be our guy for the many years after. We're not going to need to find a quarterback. So it's just a different equation for every team. And I think this is really smart. And you saw the benefit. By the way, I would say the hole in that old Colts philosophy is what happens if Peyton Manning's out a week and your backup not being prepared cost you a game that you could have won. And that game is the difference in you having home field or not in the playoffs, or winning a playoff game or not. If he's got to play one drive, a la what happened to the Chiefs last year and Eric Bieniemy when Patrick Mahomes goes down in the AFC divisional game against the Jags, and Chad Henne comes in and leads a 90-something yard touchdown drive. I bet you they're glad that they practiced screwed, right? And so here's your last chance to do that. It's a chance to do it in a game situation, which is better than doing it in practice. And you're not going to cause any controversy because of how well Sam played last week. You don't have to worry about a media narrative that even if Jacoby goes and balls out, like, okay, cool, Sam did that last week. There's no quarterback controversy. And to have that luxury, I think, is really nice. I think in the preparation side of this is really smart. I do think there's a case for Sam playing. I do think there's a case for not really worrying about this. But you'd rather be overprepared than underprepared. And taking away some extra snaps from Jake Fromm is not a bad thing. All right, so that is number 1 in our training camp pick 6 at 6. On to number 2, and that is the injury updates from Ron Rivera today.
Okay. Dax Milne suffered a little bit of a groin injury. I want to say more of a setback. He played initially and near the end he had a little bit of tightness and stuff like that. So a little bit of a setback, and we'll monitor him. Fedarian and Logan are both continuing to rehab and treat their calf injuries. I know you guys saw Logan out there doing individual. He'll come out again and do some individual as well. He's progressed very, very nicely. And we'll continue to treat Terry's toe. We're keeping him off of it. And then Tress has progressed very well from his back tightness that he's had, and he will be kicking the ball this weekend, as well as holding. Okay. Just want to make sure we get that out. So feel really good. It was good to see Chase out on the field. We did some work. We had, we let everybody know that this is keeping our heads out of contact, so he can get some work, continue with his rehab, and just waiting on his final exam to get him back out on the field. So.
And Kendall.
Oh, Kendall is progressing well. He had some knee soreness, and so we shut him down. We didn't play him in the first preseason game because of the long delay. And, through just attrition, through practice and the number of reps he's got, he has that knee, and so it just kind of swelled up on him a little bit. So we shut him down and just had him treat it, and, he should be out back on the practice field sometime next week.
I'm so glad that they left John's mic hot there, the question-asking mic, so we could hear John type the entire time. That wasn't you going crazy if you're listening to the show in headphones right now. That was John Keim typing. An honor that we should all have is to hear John Keim type. The Tress Way thing was genuinely funny in the room because Nikki, of course, asked him a couple weeks ago about, would Tress play? And Ron said yes. And then he wound up not punting. And she's like, what the hell, man? And he's like, well, he played. He didn't ask me if he was going to kick. And so Ron, some good fun there. But, I mean, I will say the most important injury updates there are obviously they're monitoring Terry with his toe, and Adam Schefter reported just a few minutes ago, actually, that Terry might miss week 1, which, look, I've been saying that as well. I don't have sources on it. I just have a brain and a knowledge of injuries. Of course, I don't trust when they're optimistic on injuries because they said Chase would miss a couple days and Logan Thomas would miss a couple days, and they haven't been back since early August. So I just don't trust Ron Rivera's optimism when it comes to injuries ever. And so we'll see. But also, if he's yeah, this guy will be out for a while, then we know. It just never is quite as quick as I think we're initially led on. So Terry missing week 1 would not surprise me at all. That's the bad news. The good news is we can watch the actions of some of these other guys, and that Logan Thomas is definitively progressing out there on the field, an individual today, and Chase Young out there for the entire practice, which was a non-contact practice with instructions to keep his head out of contact. So I think we do at least see the progress there. And in fact, one more update on Chase Young. Looks like he's going to be going to the doctor tomorrow.
It's coming tomorrow, and then we'll go from there. I mean, he's done everything that we've asked him to, and we're just hoping that, exactly what the doctor said is just, he had a little bit of a pinch, and they want to make sure that the swelling is down and move on.
All right, we will move on as well. Those are the injury updates, always important in our Pick 6 at 6.
Number 3.
All right.
Number 3.
Whoa.
Number 3.
Apparently,
Number 3.
We're in loop mode,
Number
Anthony.
3.
Stop it! We are... Is that a fine?
Nah, that's not a fine, but that's actually hilarious. You didn't know what to do.
I hit the stop loop button. Apparently I need to hit stop.
That was funny.
I want our stuff to work. I really would like our stuff to work. I would like all the buttons to be back where they're supposed to be. That's what I want on this very silly radio show that is often very silly, not on purpose. Anyway, one time for...
Number 3. Number 3. Number 3.
No! Do I need to play? Okay, I'm going to play the Ron injury update bite, but I'm going to play it so I can turn the loop off. Okay, the loop is off. So if I play number 3.
Number 3.
Sometimes you fight technology, and technology wins, man.
Yep. It's okay. You got to bounce back, though.
It's me, the loser. All right, number 3. Ron is putting together a 53-man roster on Monday/Tuesday. Obviously, they might even do some stuff before. Some teams don't wait until the deadline. But unlike years past, they are not dealing with a shortened roster right now. They've got 90, and then they go all the way down to 53. So for Rivera, does he actually like that? Does he like the 53-man one-time cut?
Yes, I think it's an excellent idea. I'm really glad they did that because what it does for us is obviously, we will be able to hold some guys out specifically. But we also know that we have enough guys to get through the game and have a good game. That's always been the concern, is that last game isn't the type of game that, I think that people really want to come see. But now that we're able to keep a bigger number of guys, and really one of the things you tell these young guys too is you may not play a lot in the second game, but just understand that third game you're going to play your butt off, so you got to get ready. And we've had a few guys that have taken that to heart, and you've seen them. They've done the extra reps. They're doing the extra film study, which is really good, and that'll be something that'll be taken into consideration, is that they understand just how important it is. I really appreciated what Coach Harbaugh said about that game on Monday night. People didn't think it was important, just watch the way it ended. It was important to a lot of those young men that get out on the football field and get their opportunity. Well, this game is very important to that group of young men that are competing for that last opportunity. And they're going to live and die with the results because for a lot of them it will be indicative of helping sway our decision-making one way or the other.
I think it's important to remember that this game is the last chance for a lot of these guys to play football for the better part of a year. A lot of them won't play in a football game until preseason next year. I do think more of them will play than in years past because the USFL and the XFL will pick a lot of them up. And Ron actually talked about the need for a developmental league. I know Jim Trotter wrote a piece in The Athletic about how Trey Lance is like a perfect example of why the NFL needs a developmental league where guys don't just get practice reps, but actually get to play games. Some of these guys need live game reps to develop, and there's just not a chance to get them in the NFL system. Like, once you get out of training camp, that's it. So this is the chance for a lot of guys. And, of course, up the roster, it's a chance for guys to carve out bigger roles for themselves. There's a lot on the line, even if there's nothing in the standings. And you don't game plan, you don't put forth the effort to win the game on an organizational level, but on an individual level, when it gets to game day, yeah, you're trying to ball out. And I think it's great that the NFL has left those decisions longer, that you have guys that have the second half of camp before that first cut down day, where you used to, be thinner on the final game. which is often when a lot of those guys would get the most reps anyway. So I agree with Ron that it's a good thing. All right, continuing on roster building, and a good question that Matt Paris asked about philosophy.
Number 4.
They've kept pretty much their entire draft class every single year that Rivera has been here, and especially with Andre Jones Jr. emerging like he is that just because they've done a good job and they've picked guys that deserve to make the roster? Or is that a philosophical thing that says if we draft a guy, there's no chance we're going to cut him after training camp?
I think that's really what it is, Matt, is a lot of those guys need that opportunity to develop. Sometimes you get fortunate and you hit on a really good player in the 7th round. I mean, Cam Curl's one of the best examples I can point to. Is there's a young player that we felt really good about. He was trending in the right direction. He was behind a couple of veteran guys. And then there were a couple of injuries, and next thing you know, he's playing. But not everybody's going to be that way as a 7th round pick. So they may need to have a little time, BK is a good example of a young man that every year does a little something that says, wow, this guy's showing that he has the ability, but he needs a little more time. And so, yeah, we do that consciously in terms of trying to develop these guys.
Makes sense, and I think it is telling that like KJ Henry and Andre Jones Jr. are probably going to make this roster. Like the squeeze at defensive line could get real, and I'm pretty interested in what they're going to do. And I think if any of these veterans have a really good game, that could definitely help them. But I think you could see a funky roster construction where like you always keep 10 O-linemen. I don't know on this team that I would do it. I might keep 9. And go 11 on the defensive line. It's going to get funky real quick. I mean, there's 12, 13 guys that deserve to make the roster on that D line, which, I mean, also says something about how they've invested resources, et cetera. But when you look at the future books where Sweat, Young, Smith Williams, Tuhill, Obata, all are not under contract next season, like, I don't know. It's a funky decision-making process. And, of course, the guy that's making it really hard is Andre Jones Jr. We've talked about him nearly every day.
Number 5.
And today, Jack Del Rio joined the chorus of people talking about Andre Jones Jr.
Well, every position's different, right? Calls on different things. So he's playing the edge for us and an edge defender. You're looking for a little juice as a pass rusher. You're looking for the ability to set a firm vertical edge for us in our run fronts. And, he's done those things. Now, in college, he was upright and in a 2-point stance most of the time. So, getting in a stance and taking on blocks was and coming out of a 3-point stance, that's been, an area where he had to grow, and he has. So, again, just all of our guys, working on the techniques, the things we're looking to do, the fundamentals of how we do it, and letting them go out and cut loose and let their natural talent show.
That kid's got so much natural talent, and it has definitely shown. And, we'll see how this ultimately shakes out. But I think Jones is, I don't even think it's a discussion. He's on the roster. He's got special teams value. He's got everything you want in a late-round pick. He's got potential. He's got current ability. Well, I don't think his current ability is as much as some of the other guys who maybe are a little less flashy, have a little less pass rush juice. They do the down-in, down-out stuff better. But he's getting better at that stuff, too. So we'll see what he does in the game against Cincinnati, and I think we'll probably expect him to make a play or two and solidify his spot on the 53. Another guy who's definitely on the 53 that people are super mad about because he hasn't had the greatest preseason, but hey, it's a long process with high draft picks sometimes, and long is like a couple of years, and you hope to see progress, is Quan Martin. And Jack Del Rio, I asked him about Quan because he was talking about different, guys having different mental loads. And I was like, I feel like he's talking about Quan. Let me ask him about Quan. And so I asked him about how Quan Martin is doing, and that will wrap up our pick 6 at 6.
Number 6.
Quan's been outstanding, really. He's had some errors that were noticeable, but he doesn't make the same mistake twice. He's a guy that's been a lot thrown at him, and I think he's handled it very well. I like the way he approaches things. He's a good young man that works hard, cares a lot, and he's being exposed to a lot. So he's had a couple mishaps, but he's doing a good job growing in the system.
I appreciate Del Rio's transparency there. Like, you can't lie to us. You can't be like, hey, this is going great, but I want to know, is he growing? Is he getting better? And the answer is yes. And, like, how's he handling? The answer is very, very well from, like, a maturity and a mental standpoint. And Keim followed up on that, actually asking about what Del Rio said to Quan after they gave up that touchdown to Zay Flowers between he and Emmanuel Forbes.
Next day when we had a correction, or 2 days later when we had a correction period, and we gloved it up like it should have been, it was really a non-play. And miscommunication between he and Forbes. And, you saw the result. Gifted receiver got open in space, and it wasn't a great finish for us. So that's a great learning experience. I would anticipate that he not make that kind of mistake again. And so I think when you see that, when he sees that, it kind of slows down. Oh, I saw this. This is the experience I had. I need to communicate this to my buddy, and this is how we play it. And so those kind of things are what we're doing. We're growing. We're learning. We're trying to teach and develop, and that's just part of the process.
There is an old expression that experience is the best teacher, and you cannot expect young players to just be perfect all the time and to be at their potential when they don't have the experience to teach them things yet. And I think Quan Martin is a great example of that. And 2 bad preseason games, or a couple of bad plays within 2 preseason games, does not mean that he's a bust. And it's good to see him continue to fight and continue to compete and continue to get better. And I think he's going to be a good football player for this team for a long time, and probably a good football player for this team this season. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. And that is our final pick 6 of the preseason, or of training camp, I should say. The training camp pick 6 at 6. A good idea we had in late July that carries us through August and will stay with us in the regular season, just simply becomes the top 6 Commander storylines of the day. So make sure that you continue to tune in at 6 o'clock here on the Team 980 for that. When we get back after practice today, went one-on-one with Jahan Dotson. Luckily, I did not have to cover him. I just had to interview him. You'll hear that interview next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Also streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980. And after training camp practice today, got the chance to catch up with Commanders receiver Jahan Dotson. You'll hear that interview in less than 2 minutes. But Anthony, I have to say first, for those watching on YouTube, it's gonna be the interview plus a graphic because my cameraman was not able to make practice today. That's you. And I heard that the CPR class that you had to take, which is why you weren't in practice, didn't happen. What happened?
So this is what happened actually. So I needed to get my CPR certificate. And the first portion of it was I had to do online. I had to do 58 modules. Mind you, I started last night. I did not finish until 1:30, about 1:30. And I was going to head down to the school around like 2, so I would have had 30 minutes to spare. But I get to the end of the modules, and it says download certificate. I just downloaded my certificate, and that's all I needed for real. I could have done the in-person portion, but I've done it like 4 or 5 times.
So you didn't need to. So you could have done this all and still made practice.
No, I would. I don't know if I would have made, because I would have had. I didn't get my modules until last night.
But why did you procrastinate? Oh, so you didn't have them. So you didn't procrastinate.
Yeah. First of all, I asked them for the modules yesterday morning because I had so much time, and it was going to take a long time. It took me like 3-4 hours, Craig.
Damn.
58 modules of like 3, 4, 5 minute like videos that I have to actually sit through. Then I had a couple 12, 8 minute. So
yeah, that's a lot. Well, I'm glad that you can save everybody's life if needed. I also am CPR certified, so this is the safest show on the radio. Or something. But what it does mean is that we just have the audio interview with Jahan Dotson, which is perfectly fine because at our core, we are a radio show, of course. And here is my chat with the star Commanders wide receiver. All right, with Jahan Dotson at the end of training. All right, with Jahan Dotson at the end of training camp. How's that sound? It's actually officially over.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. Honestly, it's a great feeling. It's been a long training camp. You know, I've been getting a lot of good work in. But, yeah, it's been a long one. So, yeah, happy these dog days are over and get to play against some other guys.
Yeah, for sure. How did this one compare? Both, obviously, new system, EB, we've talked ad nauseum about his impact for good reason, but also your second year. How is this different than last year?
Yeah, it's been a lot different. Obviously, coaching, EB, he demands stuff a certain way every single day, demands success every single day, doesn't let you take a rep off ever. And like I always say, that's what you want in a coach, someone who pushes you to your limits and brings the best out of you. And then, you know, it's always a learning process, learning a new offense. So that challenge has been, you know, a challenge, another challenge itself. But overall, I feel like it's been a good camp. Football's football at the end of the day. You're going to have your dog days, going to be tough, but you just got to push through.
I was doing a little background on you and just kind of learning a little bit more about your story. And I think it's so fascinating. You went to 3 different high schools, right? So what was that experience like? And then what was it like to find that stability at Penn State and how different that experience was in college, be able to stick in one place and grow in one place as a young man?
Yeah, it was really cool. And that was just the trust I had in Coach Franklin and the Penn State program, Coach Dwight Galt. You know, I trusted in those guys who, you know, those are really crucial years in your life where you're kind of becoming a man a little bit. You learn a lot of life lessons. You kind of learn when you were a younger kid, but you know they're amplified a little bit more. You're in the world by yourself. So you know I commend Penn State. They know how to raise young men. And they know how to build a winning culture there, and that's what we did. We won a lot of football games, and I was happy I made that choice.
And then you get here, and I don't know how much. I mean, you obviously have a great relationship with Terry on like a human level, but I think I covered him. I used to be a beat reporter back in the day. I covered him as a rookie and have known him for a while. But to see the vulnerability he showed in that interview with Ryan Clark and his crew on the pivot, like what are the conversations like in that receiver room, just on a human level, compared to what's happening in college, what was happening in high school as you mature into being around, as you say, like grown men now?
Yeah, when you're around the guys every day, you know, you share little stories about, you know, things you did in your life. You know, we all share some of the same characteristics of stories of some sort. We all can relate on different topics. So, it's pretty cool just learning the different dynamics of different guys, especially Terry being the leader of our group, of our team. And then learning a lot about guys you never knew you'd be so close with. All the guys in the receiver room, honestly. And you bring different guys in every single year, and you get to learn their stories. Is pretty fascinating.
Jahan Dotson with us here on the Hoffman Show. So you've been lauded for your route running for good reason. Pretty good at it, my humble opinion. What makes a good route runner?
I would say patience, and being able to decipher zone, where to sit in zones, knowing soft spots in zones, coverage recognition. That's a big thing. You got to know what you're going up against every single rep. And then just studying your opponents, making sure that you kind of have an upper hand on whoever you're going against that week. And then a lot of God-given ability, honestly. I got to credit God. I feel like he put me on this platform to run routes. That's what I'm doing.
I'm glad you said that because you say patience. And I'm like, yeah, it's easier to be patient when you run a 4.3. So, how often, I remember talking to Randall Cobb years ago about this, a guy who played, obviously, quarterback in college, and he would talk about how, when I know I'm the third read in a progression, I can be patient. When I'm the first guy, I got to be there now. And, are those discussions that you're having with EB, with Sam, with your receivers coach, and also is that something that you entered the league with or something you learned in this year and now going into year 2?
Yeah, that's definitely something I learned in college, knowing when you're backside of a play call, knowing when you're front side first read, when you're hot, someone's coming off the edge hot, you got to get your eyes back quick for the quarterback. It's just different dynamics of just being a great receiver and just studying the game. That's really what it is, studying your opponent, studying the game so that the looks that they're giving you, what you're going up against, like I said, and you're able to succeed.
Last thing I want to talk to you about real quick is your approach. I think people hear you interview and they're like, oh, it seems like a nice young man. Yeah. But I've also heard you give some answers. I'm like, oh, he's got a little bit of FU to him. Yeah, he's got that swag, that receiver. Everyone says diva back in the day, the Randy Mosses or whatever. But there's a confidence. Where does that confidence come from?
The work I put in. Honestly, I feel like I put my all into football. Ever since a young age too. I've been doing this forever, and I don't ever take it for granted. Like I said, my God-given ability, God put me on this field for a purpose. He gave me these abilities for a purpose. I might as well maximize them, So I feel like the hard work that I put in that's where the confidence comes from, and just trying to build on it. How
do you make sure that and it might be people around you, might be whatever it is, and you're about to ask you the question. So, how do you make sure that confidence is balanced with humility?
That's why I have great people in my corner. People who keep me grounded, especially my dad. My dad is probably one of the biggest influencers in my life. It just keeping me grounded, keeping that humility instilled in me, making sure that I never take things for granted. I always thank the man above, and that I stay close to the ones who are always there.
John, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980.
Warn you, bro. It is a mess in downtown Nashville every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Not even.
We moved hotels the next night. I still am waiting on my refund for that. But yeah, we moved hotels the second night.
Wow.
It was fun. You say they rely on them. We went to brunch with my buddy the next day, who is a Nashville native and has lived in Nashville long enough that he remembers when it was more than just the bachelorette capital of the world. And he's like, yeah, we're pretty much on the woo girl economy.
Yeah, that's precisely what's going on. The downtown businesses cater to that. If you try to get it shut down, you're probably the one getting thrown out. It is what it is right now. It's weird, but Nashville, baby. What are you going to do?
Yeah. So I will add one more small part to this story, and this is the part, frankly, that I've been waiting to tell you all week as well. That was kind of part one. We got quality Yates reaction. Part two, as we leave the hotel the next morning to go to breakfast. Remember, the wall's very thin. So it's not going where you think it's going. But as we walk down the hallway, my dear sweet wife just starts saying in a slightly elevated volume of voice, you know, it's been proven that the later groups stay out and make noise and all this stuff at their bachelorette weekend, the higher the divorce rate.
Oh God!
In the wedding,
so
and also the better
trash,
chances,
basically.
And also the better chances.
Wow. Okay. Okie dokie. So Rachel was pissed, basically.
Yeah, she doesn't have a lot of tolerance for the woo girls. They say on the internet, like, feel free to post stuff, you know, like your friends' photos, do whatever. But like whatever you do for your own well-being, don't read the comments. Comment section, bad idea. What do?
We read those comments, baby.
That is exactly what we do. That was a little bit better. I still feel like that one was a little muted. I think sometimes it feels like you build yourself up a little too much, and then sometimes you don't quite go for it.
Because I ain't want to go screaming all the way. The thing is, though, my mic is a little lower than yours, so maybe I could have actually, did what I really.
Mike also moves. You can go, ooh. Did you know you could play tricks with a microphone?
I think I'll try that next time.
Okay. You want to give it another shot?
We read those comments, baby.
There we go. All right. I feel ready now. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I apologize to the YouTube stream for not hitting the program button 1 second sooner coming out of the break so that you could have seen Anthony's woohoo.
I did no such thing, Greg. I did no such thing.
Are you really about to get here on this radio show
maybe.
and lie to people?
Maybe I did do that.
We do not tolerate lying. What are you doing, bro?
You're right. I need to be held accountable. Guys, I did it.
What if I just find you right now?
I don't think that's how the fine system works.
I think that's correct. I think there's a proper response for you. I do. Oh, I actually meant there was a 5-point something that happened yesterday. I don't even remember what it was at this point for me, but I never wrote it down. I keep staring at the board, being like, I got to do that. That's a 45 for me. God, I'm up 10 again.
Yeah, you're racking them up, man.
It's trash. And we're 20 points from another lunch.
Yeah, we're moving. We're moving really fast. You know, I thought we were going to be there yesterday, but I'm glad to see we made it through another show.
We really did have a nice run there. We were having good, clean shows.
Yep.
Should probably display the board. Yep. All right. We got 45 points for me, 35 for Anthony. As a total of 80. That is where we sit on the Hoffman Show fine board right now. When we get to 100, we buy ourselves lunch. The percentage of who pays for what is based off the points accumulated. And right now, your boy is looking at paying for most of lunch again.
Yep.
But yeah, we were having a good, clean run. And we went to lunch yesterday to finally pay off our fines from the first run through. And lo and behold, we've had 2 straight days with multiple fines.
Or 3, because I had it. That was Monday, I think.
No, 3 days. 3 days. Although today hasn't been multiple fines. Today actually hasn't had any fines. I just put one down from yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So let's try to get through real things without anything else going haywire. That'd be cool. What are the chances? I mean, if we could find the system today. The man, and by the man I mean the technology, was really out to get us earlier.
Yep.
That was not cool.
Not the life we deserve.
No, it is not. It is not. All right, tomorrow is Friday, which means that Clinton Yates will join us. I know there's a big story that broke last Friday right after Clinton was on that I was bummed that we didn't get a chance to talk to him about. The Northwest Little League, Little League World Series, or would have been team, they lost in the round before you actually get to go to Williamsport. Huge scandal, and Clinton's been all over that. That's like the Little League team he played on as a kid. So we'll talk to Yates about that. We'll obviously talk to him about Strasburg as well. And then we'll do obviously a lot of Commanders getting ready for Cincy this weekend. You'll definitely hear some Take Command tomorrow, thoughts on building the roster, thoughts on who should play, who shouldn't, the value of preseason games. That's actually probably the clip that we'll play for you tomorrow to Take Command is what's the value of preseason games. Of course, if you don't want to wait for the show tomorrow, you can subscribe to Take Command and listen when it hits your feed first thing in the morning. Anything else that we got planned? We still got into this NFL stadium list.
That's
That's definitely going to be on the show tomorrow. We keep having to bump it because there's more stuff, but I definitely am ready to dive into the list of 30 NFL stadiums that the Athletic put together. Who's got the best? The Cardinals will probably make 7 more trades. Anything else?
There's preseason football tonight. The Eagles versus the Colts. I will be locked in to see if there's any fireworks that ignite. So, yeah.
Yeah, there was a... Oh, by the way, speaking of Zaire, launching a podcast?
Yes, he is.
Are you helping with that?
I am not. One of my other frat brothers is, but anything that they need help on, I will be the guy that they lean on. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right. That's cool. Congrats to Z.
I will make an appearance on the show, though.
Oh, you got to let us know when that is.
Okay, bet.
And, I know Z's going to be busy, but if he wants to come back on and promote the podcast.
Before the season, hey, I got you.
Z's welcome anytime.
Yes, sir.
And we're not going to turn down an NFL starter on most occasions, but certainly not a guy that we like that is one of your best friends who's one of the most thoughtful guys in the league.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll take that guy anytime he wants. All right, it's time for Real Things Real People Said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right, it is that time for Real Things Real People Said into real microphones. And we start with, there's so many teams, social media groups are doing such a good job. And by the way, don't call these people social media interns. These are professionals creating real content. So respect the social media folks. Like the Eagles crew. who presented Devontae Smith with an iPad with some clips on it and said, Devontae, are you a needy player? And he's like, no. And then he hit play on the iPad.
I wouldn't say I'm a needy player.
I need a towel. Hey, I can get one of them towels. Towels. Grab me a towel.
Towels. It's raining. You need that.
I need to put it on my head. I ain't trying to get sick now. Give me a skull cap. That's what I need. Or get 2 scullies.
The scully wasn't even for me. It was for somebody else. So I was like, let me go ahead and get me one. He want one. I'm going to get me one. It makes sense.
Hey, can I get a hand warmer?
That's not needed. That's part of the game. It's cold. You need a hand warmer. That's not needed.
Hey, I need more cleats. My cleats ripped.
My cleat just fall apart. Ain't nothing I can do about it.
Hey, Pete, take the vise off. Take my vise off.
You gotta take your vise off. You can't play in the rain with a vise.
Hey, Pete, fix this. Hey, get some water. Fix that.
I'm not needy. In that particular weather, I was needy. I put it like that.
That was funny, man.
It's amazing. It's so good. I feel like Devontae Smith and I have similar personalities. I'm not needy. Oh, that? Yeah, well, it was a particular situation. Yeah. Okay, maybe sometimes I'm needy. I can relate to that. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to crush Devontae Smith.
I'm the same.
For that. This one we might crush a guy for, although we should be careful. We've talked about running 40s on this show. Kevin Hart did it. Didn't go great.
And I don't want you to be alarmed, but I'm in a wheelchair. Yeah. I'm in a wheelchair. Why? Well, because I tried to jump out there and do some young stuff. Tried to go out there and do some young man stuff, and I was told to sit my ass down. Shouts out to Stephen Wiley. I'm going to go and put this story out there before you do. Me and Stephen, we got into a little debate. This debate was based off of who was faster. Those that know me know I'm pretty fast. Stephen said, Kev, ain't no way you're going to beat me. Stephen is an ex-NFL running back, played for New England Patriots. Very good guy. I said, Steve, you can bet it. He said, bet. I said, bet. We get out there, we go run the 40-yard dash. 40-yard dash. Guys, I blew all my tore my lower abdomen, my abductors.
What?
I tore, I don't even know what that is, but I tore them. I tore those too. I can't walk. Sit my ass down. This is 44.
Dog. We were talking about this yesterday morning. People need to take sprinting more seriously.
Yeah, they do.
It is not something to be done lightly. Like, we were talking about it in just like group fitness. Like, people will be like, oh, I'm going to go take a Barry's class. And they're like, oh, I'm going to kick this treadmill up to 12 miles an hour. No, you're not. You're going to wind up in a wheelchair like Kevin Hart. Don't do that. Do some high-speed running first. Do any kind of running first. People that just think you can go out and sprint full speed like you used to when you're a kid clearly have not sprinted recently if you are over the age of 30. Them's the breaks. It happens to all of us. Yikes, man. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Not from a wheelchair.
Standing at the edge of a rocky shore, you